When are we going to rebound, brother?
The rebound is coming in about 45 minutes, Jim, so sorry you have to wait that long. I will be at the seminar today on investment property financing, and I will be teaching it, so I hope some of you will join me, and we'll, that's where we address how to understand how large of a loan amount you'll get on an income property and define where interest rates are. And today we'll also talk about how this economic situation is impacting financing now out in the income property marketplace. And I feel like we're kind of in a time machine now when I saw yesterday's Dow Jones Industrial Average close in the 6,700 range. That means we're at 1997 levels on the Dow. Could be worse. You could be in Japan investing there. Yesterday they hit a 25-year low. So much of the world, virtually all of the world now is joining us in this morass here, this economic, whatever name we want to put on it, but the troubles. Now, as far as how we're handling it here nationally, of course, we're taking this tack of using government essentially to underwrite our economic decline, and the liquidity of the U.S. government is becoming and already has become the backstop now. We're now, here's some numbers that as far as our deficit and our GDP and such. Okay, so our GDP, gross domestic product, is projected for the year at 14 trillion. The U.S. budget, federal budget, is 3.9 trillion. And the deficit that is being projected, the federal budget deficit, is 1.75 trillion. So the deficit this year will run about 13% of gross domestic product. Now, you know, so many numbers are being thrown out, and I can't understand them all. And plus, to really understand how the relationship of these numbers, it's very, very difficult. I mentioned these, the numbers I mentioned, and the fact that deficit is 13% of gross domestic product. That 13% is off the charts. That's not sustainable. So that is, when I say it's not sustainable, yeah, the nation would be in bankruptcy very quickly. So that clearly has to change. If we don't change it, you know, world economies, inflation, something else will come in to change it for us. Our GDP shrank 6.2% in the fourth quarter. That's a staggeringly large number. We've announced that as a nation, we're going to, our banking sector is, as George Soros said, I think is, what did he say? It had, it's decimated, or used some very extreme language to describe our banking sector. And boy, you look around, it's hard to say that he was wrong. I don't know what's left here in the banking sector. Now you say that, and we look at Citibank and we look at Bank of America, and they appear to be insolvent. I guess it depends on what your definition of solvency is. But then again, we've got 10,000 banks in this country. You know, could we survive without 1,500 of them? As I understand it, yes, very well. The mechanics are there to handle the banking if we lose a large percentage, and if we lose our largest banks. And the question we are all dealing with is, you know, yeah, but are there 10 banks that are too big to fail? Is AIG too big to fail? Apparently that is our policy at this point. Yes, certain banks are too big to fail. Why is that? That's one I don't get, really. What kind of chaos would ensue if you let Citibank go into bankruptcy? I think it means that their debt, Citibank IOUs, Citibank bonds, which are held all over the world by central banks, etc., that would create some sort of, you know, chain reaction of bank statement, of the balance sheets of various entities to collapse and triggers this chain reaction. I think that is happening anyway. You can't fool markets. Ultimately, they read through the financial statements. And the financial statements of institutions that are saying they're solvent, when there's not a cash flow coming through on those entities, eventually the market says, you're not really solvent, even if your Price Waterhouse balance sheet says you are. You're not, because where's the cash flow? Solvency has to do with cash flow expectations going forward. If you can't find the cash flow, I don't think you're solvent. So, part of what we're going through here is recognition of and decisions as a nation. Are we going to face up to the reality of what our balance sheets really are? So far, I think we're sort of still in our stimulus package. We're pushing a lot of public money out and hoping that we will get some traction in our economy with spending. Hopefully that spending will be productive spending. I wish there were some sort of litmus test. There isn't. But where you could, each item that comes up for Congress to approve, spending-wise, we would look at and go, wait a minute, does it meet the productivity test? If you spend that money on roads to fill in potholes, does that mean that more traffic is going to pass along those roads and we're going to be moving more efficiently our transportation system, which nets out to productivity? Maybe that is the case. Hopefully that is so. But there's other programs I know mentioned that you look at and you scratch your head and say, where's the productivity? If there's no productivity, we shouldn't be spending in that area. We haven't let Adam Smith wrote about and used this famous phrase, the invisible hand of a capitalistic economy comes in, and it is what determines what businesses will survive and what won't. And we have bankruptcies. And we've moved away from letting that so-called invisible hand be the arbiter here. And now we're coming up with government solutions, which government, we all know, is not going to be as efficient as the private sector. Granted, you've got to have government doing certain things for you, but it should be the last resort because it's just not as smart as private sector. And I hearken back to the statement I saw about 3 weeks ago, which was a congressman, which was where 8 CEOs were the CEOs of the 8 largest banks were in front of Congress. They were being asked questions, and this one Congressman Capuano, I believe is his name, got up and he was furious and he was railing, and he said, "We gave you the money." He's talking to the 8 CEOs. "Now get it out onto the streets." And just the thought was, you can't just like that say, "We've got money, here borrowers, here it is." It's not how it works. You have to be able, as a bank, to feel that when you put money out, it will be paid back. And they're not in that position right now. It's hard to find loans as a bank, that underwrite properly. So Congress, they don't understand, not all of them understand this, put it that way. Some Congress people are sophisticated in finance, but most are not, so they don't understand this principle. Now, good news here that we're dealing with, and good news is that Dino is going to be up in a minute, and I'm looking forward to that. But interest rates are, particularly short-term rates, are extremely low. 6-month LIBOR at 1.80, 1-year Treasury is at 1.5%. Any loans that you have tied to these short-term indices are accruing interest at 4%. That level, maybe under 4%. So if you have existing ARM loans, and if they're not floored at say 6 or 6.5%, if they're unfloored, your clients and yourself, you've got wonderful interest rates now accruing on income properties.